good form, so expecting that victory.
Game 1 will be on Thunderbird, and that is just loaded up. This is Keen versus Innovation.
Africa S2, Keen. Reciprocity, Innovation.
Big showing here for Innovation today.
Yeah, he is a popular player, no doubt. Has been for a very long time. Innovation showing much faster gas here, and immediately into a second gas, so going to be a little bit tech heavy here in the opening. Yeah, now we wait and see.
Good audience showing here today. Always a different crowd here on Saturday afternoons here.
You saying weekend mornings brings in different people than weeknight?
I am. I'm going out on a limb here and saying it. Although some of the people have actually been here for both of those. I'm recognizing some people.
Yeah,
I'm good at recognizing the backs of heads.
Yeah.
Because of where we cast this from. So.
Oh, no, don't turn around. We can't recognize you.
Yeah. That's your face. I have no idea who you are. So, yeah, and, you know, in case you guys are wondering why we have this Saturday afternoon cast, it's so that we can get a good time for the North American scene. It's their evening time there. Trying to get all the little regions covered so you can get some live StarCraft too, and then you can watch the VOD the other times.
That's right. If you're really hardcore, you just have a rotating sleep schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So a very quick command center here from Keen, going into his factory right afterwards. There's Innovation, continue on that tech. That's an interesting place for a Reaper, isn't it?
It is. Let's see what's actually going to be happening here. Innovation, by the way, has thrown down his command center here, albeit later than Keen's. Now, we've had some pretty cool little poke-ins with super early game pushes here. Do you think there's a possibility of that? You know, if you get a Raven, tank, you know, there's several mixtures of units.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to try to do this. Sometimes it's with a medevac coming in and dropping and hitting somewhere, and then you're trying to hit the front. Are there any opportunities that you see there for Innovation?
Well, you know, since he is making the Hellions and Reapers, there is, like, he could have poked, but that time has kind of passed. You can see him setting up more defensively here, just in case of, you know, Cyclone or whatever coming across the map. But I mean, even if you try to poke, the map is really long. You're going up a ramp. We see that Keen has already made a bunker as well, so it's like highly defensive. Can't really imagine anyone doing each other damage at this point in the game yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get some flying units out there.
Here comes that first Raven coming out here. I was talking more about like a later on little push or little attack in there. Not like trying to run in so much and kill stuff. But we'll have to see if that does come into play here because, you know, Ravens are becoming more and more interesting as StarCraft 2 continues on, the little stuff we've seen already. I mean, we could talk about yesterday where we saw, actually, sorry, not yesterday, 2 days ago when we saw the Ravens come in and chuck down auto turrets to then kill off Stim, which for us was just a complete mind-blowing experience of, like, of course that's another thing you can do here.
Yeah.
I've got my fingers crossed for maybe something like that coming up here as well.
It would be cool to see some very creative attacks going on. Not sure exactly what we'll end up seeing. Keen is going for a very fast third command center here as well, whereas Innovation continues to build up his tech. So if someone is to do one of those more technical, interesting attacks, it certainly will be Innovation. So Keen is going to have to wait a bit to really get his macro rolling and get anything together that could do an attack.
Yeah. Here comes Keen's Hellion now going into the main. And you can see Innovation was ready for a drop, but this Hellion does come in here more scouting than anything else. Sees the Raven, taken out by the Cyclones.
He was totally ready for anything coming in from the side. Ooh, another factor here for Keen, so he's decided to go mech. Not a big surprise. This guy was mixing in mech for quite some time, even against Protoss, before the mech actually caught on.
Yeah, mech's always kind of been in and out of StarCraft too. Yeah, there's periods where it's very trendy in certain matchups and it's very strong, and then it'll either get figured out or phased out of the meta.
It was quite a nice scan by Innovation, by the way. He saw exactly the moment that Keen had verified that he was going for mech play, so definitely useful. We'll see where Innovation goes with that information.
We had games in this season already where players were playing pretty well but didn't fully identify that there was an unusual unit composition that was being teched out. So it's good to see him get that in there right away. And a very passive game to start things off. Both players much more interested in showing what they've got in, late game here. We've got the 3 factories coming down now. Meanwhile, Innovation staying on bio here as we see Stim coming up as well. And Innovation, versus a mech player, usually the bio player with tanks is able to do a little bit more on the map. Coming out and trying to get a little bit of control. Mech always takes, and there's some exceptions since the the Cyclone being incorporated into StarCraft 2. There's been a little bit of a change to this. We saw Gumiho especially express this in some of his games, but generally the bio player is usually able to do something, and that's what we're going to see right here. Now there's scans coming down here. The tanks are actually behind the bunkers, so Innovation should get some pot shots off on this bunker of Keen's right now.
Yeah, I don't think he can do too much more than this because of the layout of the map. If you try to push it too much, it's like, what are you doing?
Well, it'd be so ambitious to try to push up a ramp with Stim against a mech player. But he does kill the bunker, doing a little bit here and there.
This position from Innovation, like maybe the Ravens can help him break. That's going to be what he tries. And look,
disabling on the Ravens.
Yeah, kind of a big deal there. Tons of disables going off on both sides, but Innovation won't break this. No way, no how.
No.
In fact, he wasted all his Ravens there. So this was a bit foolish. You're doing Raven against Raven. You're kind of trying to just bust. And back when Interference Matrix first came out, we saw a lot of situations where you could bust the mech player with those disables. But you see, Keen's well practiced with this strategy. He knows to disable the Raven and let his Vikings clean up. So that was, it was like Innovation was almost going for a cheap win. He's like, I hope you don't know how to defend this. So kind of weird.
Yeah, it was a little bit of what I was talking about earlier. Will he try to do something fancy with a little push to start things off? And he did try that, but yeah, it did not work at all. And frankly, losing those Ravens like that was the big tech unit you were leading up to. And so to lose those assets like that is pretty bad.
Well, Innovation is adding a bunch of barracks and continuing forward with this bio play, but you're kind of limited. Like, you can look at this as the mech player, and I expect to see a lot of scans out of Keen checking tech, because if you stay on this like bio force, what you need to do as the mech player is just kind of watch for base trade type situations, right? If you're going heavy bio, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe he'll fly in with medevacs, maybe he'll wait for me to move and try to get me out of position or while I'm unsieged. But what you're really kind of going to want to look for is switches into Sky Terran.
Right.
That's where it can get really scary. The bio player can generally expand a little bit more, get a really big economy going, and almost seamlessly go into massive Vikings and like Liberators to push down the mech.
Yeah, you sort of move past that mech part of the game.
And you can see Innovation starting air attack. So that kind of points towards that's what he wants to do.
And as time passes, Keen's going to continue to muster a pretty scary mech army. A lot of this comes down to, in mech versus bio, comes down to raw power versus mobility. It's very hard to engage the mech army, but the mech army is slow and cumbersome to move, specifically because of the way the siege tank operates. It needs to get into siege mode, shell stuff down, and then when it needs to move, it's got to unsiege, which takes an animation, then get to the right location, then get set up. Whereas Stim, Bio, Marines, and there are tanks in that army too, but usually what you do is you set up some type of position, and then you look for an opening elsewhere or try to flank them. But Stim Bio is just much more agile. But again, if it ends up fighting directly into the siege tanks, and the siege tanks are in siege mode, the bio is obliterated.
Yeah, it really is. So it's something he needs to look out for.
And that's why we're going to see this sky switch coming up here.
Yeah, he's adding the starports right now, so he's definitely getting ready for it. The most important part of this is making sure you have more Vikings than your opponent. It can become a little bit of a Vikings arm race, because as soon as you have more Vikings, you own the skies, and you can go like Liberators with range and basically push into everything as long as you have enough siege tanks to, you know, make sure that your opponent can't just rush in with ground units.
One other concept that's worth offering as well is that when you own the skies, your tanks are stronger because you can actually just fire as long as you have spotters there, air spotters.
Yeah.
Which makes things a lot easier. Granted, you have a lot of scans. It's just a lot more mechanical output than if you can simply get your air army over a location and then have your siege tanks able to pick off whatever's in that area.
Yeah, and again, if you don't have that, those air units, like, yeah, you'll use scans for a little bit, but eventually Liberators can really turn the tides. We even sometimes see BCs in that late game, like with TY versus Maru the other day.
Right.
So both sides getting into some Liberators and their fusion cores, so we'll be seeing that range upgrade coming. More starports for innovation, although Keen is adding them on.
And this is a great build-up to an epic TVT in the late game here.
Yeah.
Seems like Keen's going to try to occupy the top center here. TVT is a matchup that oftentimes operates based off where the no man's land is set up, and we're beginning to see that carved out here as the map is getting cut diagonally here.
1 Raven and 14 Vikings for innovation, and then 12 Vikings for Keen. So innovation does own the skies right now. He also has those Marines, which can add their firepower to it. So, you know, if they end up having a battle like that, it definitely does go to innovation, who has already switched into Liberators. So I feel like he's playing this just right.
We're teching up further and further here. 3-3 is almost done now for innovation. And eventually push is going to have to come to shove. They're both maxed out. Now when you see the mech player setting Hellions out, that's going to happen pretty organically because you're always going to be mining more minerals at this phase of the game than gas, and you have all these factories, so you end up throwing out a lot of Hellions and trying to shoot them out onto the map, a lot of times suiciding them because you need to kill off workers. And there's nothing else you can do with those minerals, generally speaking.
Yeah, and killing
turrets,
workers is more powerful against a bio player than against a mech player generally, because they're less cost efficient. But anyways, a set of bio coming over here. This is actually innovation, just trying to, you know, get something done with this bio force. He doesn't really need it that much, so if he can trade it reasonably, it's really worthwhile.
And 2 battlecruisers about halfway done. More command centers coming down, so we're going to have a lot more mules and the options for planetaries here.
Is innovation about to have like 10 Liberators? I believe so.
I think he might be. He's got 5 or 6 naked, excuse me, right now.
Yeah, Keen keeps scanning things like bases instead of looking for that air army, because he keeps adding battle cruisers. And like with Yamato, they do all right, but Vikings can kind of beat battle cruisers, so you have to be very careful about that. Really, it's the air armies are all about who has the Viking advantage and who can win that. And obviously Ravens can help out as well, so we've seen Corvid Reactor come up for innovation. I just feel like innovation's setting up for this better.
I think you're right. One thing as well is as much as we've seen battlecruisers dominate and super flashy play, especially from TY 2 days ago, the Vikings get the air shot off first. It's similar to the concept of the siege tank in siege mode, right? If anything is going to fight a group of siege tanks, you first have to factor in that the siege tanks will deal their damage before the opposing ground unit will deal theirs. And it's the same truth for Vikings. Vikings spray out missiles at an incredible range.
They have good damage, and they're actually pretty decent at kiting, so you can't really chase them down.
Right, and this is a very different concept than, for instance, what we've seen in TVZ with Corruptors, where Corruptors are supposed to be sort of the anti-air unit for Zerg, the air-to-air fighter. But, you know, with BCs, you can Yamato them, you can try to teleport away in a form of harassment. Here, because this is such a push-based matchup and map control matchup, it's harder to utilize battlecruisers in the same way. I'm not saying that the battlecruisers are a bad choice. It's just when faced with a large number of Vikings, it can be very problematic for the battlecruiser player.
So, innovation right now setting up some interesting high ground positions here, but Keen is pushing forward like non-stop, right? He's trying to take all these spots in the middle. He's even opened up some of the mineral paths to walk through, sending his BCs out. I like this a lot, right? Like in the main battle, these won't be as useful, but with a move like this, First off, you know all the Vikings are going to have to reposition over here, but you can just warp out. Unless they get disabled, which you really have to watch for.
Yeah, let's see where that Raven's at.
He should be scanning incoming units. Yeah, see that? See those two scans?
Oh, he's
okay, well, one's innovations, but...
Okay. Are the disables going
to
come
get
out?
out of
Here we go, here we go. Oh!
Very good, very good.
Excellently done.
Yeah, you want, if you're going to use your BCs like that, you have to have scans ready to watch the Ravens coming in, because if they get off the interference matrix, the BCs are dead,
right.
And that's as efficient as you can possibly get.
Now, even though the BCs got away, I mean, good for Keen there. Is this, trying to harass with BCs, I'm guessing from the bottom left or the bottom right, those are the only two locations I could really see this being viable. Is this ever going to pay for itself or be that much of a threat here to innovation? I feel like it's more of a nuisance than anything else.
Okay, so the BCs, if you use them correctly, are the best long-term unit in probably the entire game. Like, you can always get away if you use them right, and they can always kill things if you use them right. So, over time, absolutely. Right now, if you look at these two armies, you just got to be very careful. Looks like Keen has retaken that air lead, though. Innovation at this point, because he didn't hit any kind of a attack when he had the air dominance, he now has 12 Liberators that are actually not that useful, right? Once you get up into BC territory, BC occupies a very similar place to the Liberator. So we're looking at like 12 Liberators against like 5 BCs. Well, the 5 BCs are actually better than the 12 Liberators by a good margin. And now that they're both really realizing that it's air versus air, it turns more into Vikings and Ravens, because Ravens can disable everything and do anti-armor missiles, and then Vikings can beat everything.
Well, does Innovation then need to try to send these Liberators out somewhere and try to do some damage elsewhere? Because the problem when you get maxed out is obviously you can't make other units. So is there a clever way to try to utilize these and also get rid of them to free up that supply? Or is he just going to do it instead? I see SCVs coming out. He might just try to suicide workers instead.
Absolutely suicide the workers. And you're right, there's a couple different things you can do with the Liberators. One is send them out for harassment purposes. The other, let's not forget that they technically do have splash damage. So if you have anti-armor missile on your opponent's Vikings and you can actually get in there with your Liberators, they, you give the -2 armor and suddenly they do a pretty good job, right?
Okay, Yamato's blasting down these turrets over here. And this is the same location those battlecruisers were in before. Now, we don't have anything over here to help defend, but now the battlecruisers of Innovations are coming in here with their own Yamatos, but it looks like they're able to teleport away. Nicely done.
All right, so we see a few Raven spells going off right now. Not sure exactly what was going on over there. But yeah, Keen is utilizing his battlecruisers quite well, I would say. As long as they get out, they're doing damage, and then you repair, and repair is really not that expensive. Both sides have thrown away some of their SCVs and should continue to, especially when you have all these orbitals. Because you need a lot of orbitals for scanning and things, but like look at Innovation's bank. 4.5k, 4.2k. Wow.
Yeah. That is important when we get these big fights where the armies are colliding into each other and everything's getting destroyed. Assuming that Innovation has the infrastructure, he can remake that entire army immediately.
Yeah. You see that Innovation has started to send out some of these Liberators. He has reduced his count down to 6, so he got rid of half of them so far. It's definitely something he needs to continue to do.
So we only have one expansion that doesn't have a command center occupying it. I'm not saying that it's going to come down to that one base, but it could.
Yeah, and that's one of the rich geyser bases, too, so that's kind of interesting. It's funny that Keen has one, he doesn't have the geysers taken.
Yeah.
It's like, well, don't we just want to see someone mine from those? See what their gas bank looks like afterwards?
Yeah.
Come on.
Continuing to shell over at this area.
Yeah, these moments are so funny because this is what late game TVT can look like, where it's like, yeah, one tank is attacking over here, and that's actually a problem. It's erasing the turrets.
It's another fire to try to put out.
See that? It's like, yeah, he's gaining value against these turrets. You don't need too many siege tanks at this point.
Yeah, all you need is 1 or 2 that are going to be able to shell the ground, because this entire air blob, this cloud of air units is going to be able to defend that. And over time, that 1 tank or 2 tanks can chisel away at this area. And now we're going to be able to see Innovation actually come in here and take out this very important expansion with those rich gas geysers.
Yeah, this is getting so crazy right now. Look at that, ton of Yamatos coming out, dealing with a bunch of these turrets.
It is cool to see how the turrets play an interesting role in forcing the Yamatos out.
Yeah.
So that then later on you can actually have a fight where Yamatos can't be utilized on the aggressor side. And so we have Keen once again going to have to teleport away. But hey, I'll take losing turrets all day, especially in a game where it's all about the gas units.
Yeah.
You have the extra minerals anyway. Excuse me, you have the extra minerals anyways.
Yeah. It's like these are fantastic moves that we're seeing. Both these players playing so well tactically and strategically, and it's kind of getting into these really funny areas as well. First off, I love that Keen is adding a few Cyclones. With their lock-on, they definitely can run around the map and cause a bit of havoc. And you got to watch out too, right? If you get to too many Vikings, it becomes somewhat comical in the opposite direction, where tech switches can occur.
Right.
Like, let's say that these guys lose all their BCs, and then it's like 30 Vikings versus 30 Vikings. Well, what beats that? Anything.
It's one of these moments where it's like some of these moments where we see Zergs win, where they just have their whole maxed out army hit a location, and they switch into a different tech to address the next problem. Eventually, you've tech looped out of them.
Yeah. Like, if all the BCs die, what wins? Like a Thor? I don't know, a group of Marines? Like,
Yeah.
you can suddenly get a lot done with other things. But
And that's in part because it takes so long to make a BC that when it's killed, it changes the whole dynamic of the game, especially if a group of them are taken out.
now, the way that this is being played right now, this is really intelligent on both sides. Like, if you're running BCs around, if your opponent's BCs are moving and killing something, your BC should be doing that as well.
Right.
It's a really important concept.
I think Innovation, though, has navigated this to a safe position for him. I mean, Keen has lost total control of the top right. That being said, Keen's done some good damage to the bottom left, but as far as minerals and gas go, it seems like as the actual fight happens... Hold up, here it is,
Oh my god, Keen just wrecking absolutely everything
That was absolutely
in the universe.
beautiful. I was going to say, once the big fight happens, we know that Innovation can at least remake all this, so let's watch the minerals and gas go down. But that engagement from Keen was so good and so cost-effective.
Yeah. I was going to say, the weird thing about Innovation's army is it was his BCs with the rest of his air army, where Keen split them. Your BCs shouldn't be with the rest of your air army, because if your opponent brings all their forces to bear suddenly, only your BCs can get away. So it's like, do you just keep your BCs there? Well, if you keep your BCs there, they get disabled and they all die. So they should actually not be with your main army if you both have this same army.
So this is becoming the complete opposite of the day that we thought we were going to have here, Artosis.
Yes, it
Creator's
really is.
already beaten Classic 2-0, and Keen looks ready to close this one out here as Innovation is getting squished so hard.
Yeah, Keen is smashing some face right now.
I mean, Keen's engagement there was so much better than I think anybody would expect as well. Like, that went so perfectly for him.
Yeah, we didn't get to see the beginning of it, but
But I mean, he came out, I think he still had over 170 supply even after the fight was finished. I mean, it wasn't even like he had to remake that much. We saw Innovation's production tab going crazy trying to catch back up.
And his bank is gone. He's got like no minerals.
Broke.
He is still mining, but his bases they're being erased, you know? Keen is flying around the map.
I think Keen just combs through the bottom left side of the map again. Just keep clearing this area out.
Yeah, look at all those mules. Watch this income fall from plus 4.5k to 0. Okay, so Innovation coming out with his rebuilt forces right now. Let's see, 22 Vikings versus 24, and then 10 BCs against 7. So, an anti-armor missile onto Innovation's BCs can allow Keen to do something here, and he has 10 Cyclones now, and there's no actual ground units for Innovation. So yeah, Keen really looks primed to win this, but Innovation's air army against air army can win. It's possible.
He'll need some perfect execution, though.
Yeah, the Raven spells are really, really
here we go. Teleports over here. Vikings have a nice spread, though.
Oh my god. Yeah, the jumps here to try to dodge Yamatos. We hear half of them going off, then the other half. So many Vikings actually fighting here as well.
Yeah, Innovation has an insane number of Vikings, but I don't know if this is going to be enough. GG, Keen takes that.
Yeah, that was a really well-played game by Keen. Shows his TVT prowess once again. Don't forget, this guy almost knocked out Maru last year and stopped the legend before it began.
And We have not had a game that's not been an upset so far. But I got to say, Keen and Creator are just looking amazing.
Yeah, I feel like Innovation made 2 mistakes this game. He got an air advantage, which you normally get as the bio player. Normally you'll get into a slight air advantage because they don't know exactly when you're switching. And then he made 12 Liberators and didn't do anything.
Right.
So that right there, I think, was the first thing that allowed Keen to get on parity at minimum, and then maybe a slight advantage. And then kind of having his entire army together, where you don't have as many options and your opponent chooses when to engage. Whereas Keen just had BCs out and could warp them at any time to join the rest of his army.
We're going to go to New Repugnancy for game number 2. Keen winning in a very commanding way, going to the super late game in that TVT and just out-navigating Innovation there. Let's see what happens as we move on to game number 2. If Keen wins here, the loser's match is Classic versus Innovation. I know. It's weird.
And it's not like Dark and Stats are in their group.
Yeah.
Afrika S2, Keen. Reciprocity, Innovation.
So we have both players going for Barracks and Gas to start things off. I'm really happy to see how well Keen is playing today. You mentioned this earlier, Artosis, but yeah, Keen looked very good this year already. I mean, but to see him again holding his own and actually dominating Innovation, I think the most technical aspect of that game specifically was the climax of them both maxing out. And I think the fact that he managed to execute that attack with such perfection to where Innovation's supply plummeted, and he was basically in a losing position since then. To see Keen do that against Innovation is insane, because usually when you see 2 top-tier GSL Codex players and it seems like it's even, generally the more experienced player who's had better results shows why they've been more consistent in very complex situations like that, because they can even handle things as crazy as that to a much better degree than their opponent. So Keen, next level now.
Yeah, he looked really great there.
But you know, Innovation, I almost forgot about it, to be honest, because that game was so long and dramatic. What was that, like a 20-something minute game?
Yeah, that must have been 20 minutes.
Must have been. Innovation actually started that game out with a pretty ambitious and maybe foolhardy push. He came out with his 3 Ravens, tried to attack up a ramp.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
that was a really poor push.
And then the Ravens were disabled and totally obliterated by the Vikings. And then I'm not saying that Keen had an edge there, but it wasn't like Keen was easily able to take the game to the late game. But kind of a questionable decision there by Innovation.
It was like the type of move that you do on a fresh account on ladder just to get the win and keep moving up to where you're supposed to be.
Exactly. When you're playing somebody and you say, well, I'm basically better than this guy, so let me just do a quick strategy because I don't have all day, right? I want to get in as many games as I can. It almost seemed like that was the case with Innovation back there.
Now look at this move from Keen. Gets 2 Reapers up here. It forces the units back, and then he hits the natural. Right? Does he hit the natural? I saw him bring up another unit, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
I don't think we're going to catch it.
No, we're just not going to look, I guess. Okay, I guess he didn't then.
There
was a mine there anyways, so good defense, yeah. Okay, it was a Hellion that was up there. Oh! Oh!
So, the Reaper's going to come in here again. Now, if the army tries to attack these Reapers, keep in mind the Hellions can provide some cover.
Yeah. There's no real way to get anything done right there.
Yeah.
These strategies are too similar. The unit set's too similar. The defender's advantage is enough here for Innovation.
Here's Innovation's first Raven starting now.
Yeah, we might be seeing that out of Keen momentarily as well.
Ravens are very much the thing to get early on with that Tech Lab.
Their spells are so useful all game.
Yeah.
All game long. All 3 of the spells are really cool.
We've seen Banshees used, but it seems like the Raven just has so many ways that it can be capitalized on as the game progresses.
Well, the Raven's even good against the Banshee, right? So
Yeah,
it's just like
yeah,
useful
seize the Banshee.
in every way. It's useful against like every unit set. Good for harassment and defense.
Yeah, it's
pretty
a
crazy.
Swiss Army knife unit for Terran.
Yeah.
That's why it was such a big deal when we saw Innovation clumsily throw those 3 Ravens away. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, what do you have now besides basic Terran units? Now, Innovation, again, it appears like he's setting up to leave his base, or at least I thought he was when he pulled everything out of the main.
Well, maybe he's just kind of waiting for whatever's going to come from Keen, but strategies are so similar right now, I can't imagine a real attack doing anything to either side.
Yeah. But we do see this from time to time. These little skirmishes up here at the front.
Yeah.
Seems like Keen still has some map control now.
Yeah, pretty close overall, though. And third command center starting here for Keen. That was...
Ouch, that's not okay.
It's funny what that looked like.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess he didn't lose anything super valuable.
Okay, here comes that push from Innovation. He's going to try to move out. And this is a round when Keen is going to try to get that third base. Well, he is getting that third base. So let's see if there's any opportunities for Innovation to get some jabs in here. And let's see how good he is at keeping these Ravens alive and utilizing them. Because last game was a bit of a disaster.
Innovation playing a little bit of a safer game here as well. His third command center's in his base, whereas Keen built it on location. So Keen's going from rogue.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely the possibility of Keen being punished for this.
That was a sick pickoff, though. Double locks on to Cyclone right there.
Reapers are going to come up now and try to hit the natural here. This may actually draw Innovations. It is going to draw Innovations army away, which means Keen's command center might be safe. It looks like the command center is now going to finish here. So this is a really good tactic here by Keen.
Yeah, his tactical play so far in this series is just amazing. Like, look at this. He's getting some damage done and forcing Innovation back when he's actually the one that's been expanding a bit quicker.
Yeah. And you know what? These Reapers didn't have any purpose anymore anyways, right?
Very, very little.
I mean, Reapers get more and more useless as the game goes on. So that's the end of that. But, I mean, he perfectly utilized that. And now look at this. Keen can get over into this position. He even confirms, okay, no CC there yet. I should be in the lead. He doesn't overstay his welcome. He doesn't do anything that could throw away this position. He backs up. He scans. He sees where that army is.
Yeah. And
He's going to send the 3... Oh, no.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
This is why Terran need recall.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my
Innovation
God.
just didn't see it.
Yes!
Oh, my God.
Yes!
Okay, well, I'm not drinking dirty water this time, Tasos. I knew about that already.
This is, yeah. Wow. We finally have it.
We got
It's
two
now
of
just a
3
thing.
add-ons.
Artosis, we're getting auto turret tattoos right after the show. This is great. This is the second time we've seen this now used. So good.
He saved a little bit of mana, but let's not forget that now Innovation has more energy on these Ravens. Maybe
Very
he
true.
can get in and do something. I love the turret that he placed down to try to
disable these tanks.
Oh my God, he's throwing down auto turrets. The turret gets a Raven with high energy. That turret was amazing.
But all Innovation has to do is try to hang on. I'm sorry, Keen has to do is try to hang on here.
Things are looking fine, I think, right? A couple of good disables, though, do go out on Keen's tanks. But it seems like all the siege tank volleys were used elsewhere. The tanks come out of that.
Yeah, I mean, Innovation is not going to make an impact here.
Oh, my God. He just holds easily.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Keen's better than Innovation, Creator's better than Classic.
That's the way
It's
it is.
just what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be honest, they really are outplaying their opponents.
I know.
Like,
That was
these
beautiful.
Like, Keen is kind of tactically outplaying him, running around him, drawing him around. Keen has really been dictating this game. And what has Innovation done? He's done 2 early game poor attacks.
Yep.
And after those poor attacks, he's like, I guess it's macro time.
Stim is just started, by the way, for Innovation. So that's how far out in this game he is. And once again, he's going to try to come up here, but I think this is going to be easily handled here. I mean, both tanks are just shut down. That's a further disadvantage here. Now Innovation's not even pulling his Vikings away.
At least he has the air control and did push that forward a little bit right there. Kind of similar as far as the SCV count goes. Keen just playing that nice game. He's got a good army right now. He's got a couple of Liberators flying out on the map. Looks like he wants to get some harassment done.
And the game goes on, but Innovation's going to have to be ready for the push here from Keen. I mean, it wasn't even just that initial push that was shut down, but the fact that he then sent 2 more tanks with a sparse amount of Vikings to cover it that was also picked off. This means that Keen should have enough muscle, if this attack is executed correctly, and it's easier said than done, he should have enough muscle to maybe even punt the command center onto the high ground. Well, he says otherwise, though. Let's see.
It's so hard to attack uphill.
You know, the thing about Keen, too, is he's well aware of the position that he's in, that he should be able to lead this to a win, so he's being cautious. He doesn't want to overextend here.
I really do like what he's doing. Like, just roaming around, making him reposition. Look at this. 6 kills, plus he's going to get a few Marines. My God.
Okay,
really good.
Innovation already prepared for the unusual angle of attack over here. Stim is done, by the way, for Innovation, so he now has infantry that can be utilized like a normal mid-game TVT.
Yeah. And it's really good that Keen is walking around like this. Like, look, again, command center on location versus the more defensive building your command center back. And, I mean, in this situation, Keen is kind of dictating everything that's occurring in this game. I love the roaming, too. I don't want to see any full attacks, but just roaming around these areas, like we see Innovation consistently scanning, repositioning. Keen's giving himself a lot of opportunities, whereas all Innovation